It was a busy week for Governor Brian Kemp. He signed 2 bills Wednesday involving tax cuts and tax refunds. He's scheduled to sign what he calls tort reform on Monday. The governor also talked with our Faith Jesse. They discussed his signature piece of legislation and his thought process as he decides his political future. But we begin with President Trump's tariffs and the global effect.
Are we moving too fast? Would you do anything differently with what things are going right now?
Well, listen, the one worry I've said for months is going down this road is, potentially can increase cost or inflation and then also create uncertainty with the consumer. In other regards, erode consumer confidence. And I think that's something that, I've said was one of my biggest fears of this. But also said that, President Trump has a really good argument to make of going after countries like China that have really been unfair trade partners. And I think the American people, and I know myself, support that. So I thought the move that he made the other day to put the 90-day pause, on the big tariffs and really focus on China is the way to go. They keep saying there's a lot of people coming that are wanting to make deals. I take them at their word for that, and I hope that's the case.
So you see that's negotiation? Yeah,
and I think it's President Trump is a negotiator, and I think him getting people to the table. I think he'll cut good trade deals for our country, and I think in the short term that will be fine. If this drags out a long time, I think it will be problematic.
What would you suggest?
Well, I would suggest getting some of the trade deals done, which I think is exactly what they're working on. I've listened and read a lot and heard long, in-depth interviews from, the people that are engaged in those efforts. And I take them at their word that there are people coming to the table and there's good things that are happening that we don't know about. But we just have to wait and see. I mean, it in my eyes, needs to be a short-term solution.
You have said in the past that you're in agreement with right-sizing some portions of the government. Do you think that the way that it's being handled is too fast, or should things be pulled back and maybe examined a little bit?
Yeah, I think it would be really hard for me to answer that question because, you hear, the one bad thing that happened to one person, which is unfortunate for sure, and maybe could have been handled in a different or better way. But then you also hear the other side of the story of waste, fraud, and abuse that they've come upon, just some of the outrageous things that have been going on that they're actually finding and cutting back on. And, there's been a lot of debate around the Medicaid program. If they're cutting Medicaid because we're not going to give benefits to illegal aliens that are in the state of California, then that is something that I can certainly support because that would leave more money to help us get rid of our debts and deficits and help drive interest rates down because we're spending too much money at the government and really right-sizing things back to a pre-COVID environment, plus the rate of inflation. And I think when you explain to people that going back to a budget that is where we were pre-COVID plus adding the rate of inflation there is very reasonable.
What does a campaign for Senator Kemp look like?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question just yet. I've told people I was really focused. I mean, I knew how hard our legislative session was going to be. I know how much work I felt like we needed to do in my next to last legislative session for the people of our state. Tort reforms, besides the tax cuts and tax refunds and hurricane disaster relief and other really important things that we did, I knew how hard the tort reform fight was going to be. And, most people in the stage that I'm in right now, next to the last session, probably wouldn't have tackled such a tough issue, but I really felt like that was something very important for our business environment in our state. I feel very strongly about that, and I felt like it was worth the risk of being defeated in that effort. Thankfully, we were not. We won that battle, and we won that battle for the people of our state, and I think it's going to be good for our state in the long run. And so I was really focused on that. I tried to put off any political, decisions, discussions until we got out of session. Now that I'm out, we've got bill signings we're doing. Our daughter's getting married in just a few days, and so I'm focused on that, but I am starting to do a little diligence on what, my political career looks like or not over the next several weeks or month or so, couple of months, and then we'll let people know, once we get down that road a little bit further. But I just have started that.
Faith's full interview with Governor Kemp is streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. You can download and watch for free on your TV right now.